The year is 2169. Thanks to scientific and medical advancements, people are effectively immortal and are genetically engineered to stop aging at 25. However, from this moment, they're given 1 year left to live with their time left shown on their forearm. Time can be earned through work, but it is also spent on goods and services such as food and rent. Once your time runs out, you have a heart attack and you instantly die. The wealthy essentially lives forever, while the poor live their lives from paycheck to paycheck. We meet Will, a young man living in a poor ghetto in southwest United States. He lives day to day with just enough time to get by with his mother, who is celebrating her 50th birthday. He had been working overtime to save up for a bottle of champagne. However, their celebrations are cut short as they begin talking about finances. His mother says that she has 3 days left on her wrist, with half of that needed for rent, 8 hours of electric bills, on top of a loan they'd just taken out. She tells him to meet with her at a bus stop after work, as she won't have very much time left after paying all the bills. She grabs Will's wrist, telling him to grab a decent lunch today, as she transfers 30 minutes to him. Will kisses her goodbye as they both head off to work. In this society, everyone is rushing around as their lives depended on it. On the way, Will runs into a little girl, who asks him for a minute. He hands her 5. He arrives at work and grabs a cup of coffee with his friend Boral. The price of a cup had just gone up from 3 minutes to 4 minutes. On his way to work, we see what appears to be 2 men arm wrestling as time ticks down. After a hard day's work with producing time containers, he clocks out and gets paid. He sees that his payment has gone down, with his manager saying that the quota has increased and Will didn't reach it. After work, Will heads to a local bar, and a guy invites him to a poker game. Will turns him down and reminds him that he owes him an hour. He meets with Boral, who is drunk, saying that there's someone that's been buying everyone drinks. He says that the man has over a century on his wrist. Several people have begun eyeing the man. Will walks over to him quietly and tells him that he's attracting too much attention, and that he'll put himself in danger, only for the man to shrug him off. Just as he says this, a group of men enters, and everyone rushes out. They are a local group of gangsters. Their leader, Fortis, tells the man that he has a nice watch, but he will offer him the chance to fight for it. The man stumbles back into the bathroom and starts vomiting. With nowhere to run, Fortis simply sits and waits. This was when Will comes to his rescue, slipping out of a secret exit. The two run away as the gangsters give chase, eventually hiding in an abandoned building. The man introduces himself as Henry Hamilton. Will tells him that he doesn't belong here and that he'll help him get out of here in the morning. Henry looks at him and says that he looks like the one that needs help. Henry tells Will that he's 105, and there comes a day where you've just had enough. The mind is spent, even though the body is not. Will says that's ridiculous. He must have never seen the horrors of death. Of course I have, says Henry. I've seen way too much death. For a few to be immortal, many has to die. The time currency system and the time zones were established with the sole purpose to control the population by the wealthy. That is why the cost of living keeps rising, to make sure people keep dying. The rich are the ones that deserve to die. At dawn, Henry wakes up before Will and secretly passes all of his time. Will wakes up alone with 116 years and a message telling him not to waste it. Will immediately runs to Boral's place, where he meets his wife and daughter. After explaining what had just happened, Boral says that this much time is going to get him killed. Will says that he intends to take his mum to New Greenwich. A decade for being my friend for the last 10 years, he says, as he transfers and gives his friend a farewell hug. After paying 2 days worth of loans at an ATM, Will's mother approaches a bus to get home. She tries to board, but the fare has just gone up from 1 to 2 hours. She pleads him, saying that it's more than 2 hours on foot and she only has 90 minutes left. Then you better run, says the bus driver. Will is on time, but his mother is not on the bus. Realizing something is wrong, he begins to run. Time ticks down as his mother begs everyone around her, but no one can help her. They finally see each other as they both sprint for their lives, but they were too late, as the mother dies in her son's arms. The next day, Will is seen showing his wrist to a driver as he gets in. They reach a toll gate, as a voice prompts him to deposit 1 month in order to pass. They pass through gate after gate, as the fares grow from 2 months to eventually a year. He arrives at New Greenwich, a gleaming modern city. He steps out and begins running habitually, only to slow down when he realizes everyone here walks slowly. This attracts glances from a girl nearby. Will checks into a hotel and pays 2 months for a room. He struggles to fit in as he's always used to rushing. The waitress advises him to slow down to blend in with everyone. Meanwhile, the timekeepers have discovered the body and begin to track down the culprit for a century worth of robbery. They soon discover that someone has spent a year crossing every single time zone. After scanning his face, the head timekeeper is surprised as he knows of Will's father. At a casino, Will is asked to give 1 year in donation to enter. He is seated at a poker game, as Mr. Philip Ways introduces himself as the CEO of the largest bank. Aren't the time zones just the next logical step in our evolution? Remarks Philip. Evolution is always about survival of the fittest and has always been cruel, as he raises another 2 centuries. Philip's daughter, Sylvia, takes a seat at the table. "The strong survive, but I think your hand is weak," says Will as he calls, leaving him with only 30 seconds left. Philip reveals a pocket double, only to be beaten by Will straight. With mere seconds on the clock, he cashes in more than 1,000 years. After this, Sylvia invites Will to a party later on that night. With his newfound earnings, he splurges on a 70-year car. And now with his new ride, he arrives at the Ways mansion. There, Philip introduces 3 generations of women who look exactly the same age. Will stumbles around awkwardly until Sylvia approaches him. She leads him to dance, saying that the way he moves around reminds her of the ghetto. "We can all live forever as long as we don't do anything foolish," she continues, but she hates the idea of never doing anything foolish and meaningful in her life. Will tells her that he has an idea, and leads her to the back of the party. He begins taking his shirt off. Sylvia is shocked as she's never been so close to the ocean, even though this was right outside their backyard. The two go skinny dipping, with Sylvia being excited about the freedom, but the guards eventually catch up, telling her to come back inside. After they're back at the mansion, the timekeepers are here. The head timekeeper introduces himself as Raymond, and asks Will where he got all the time from. Will tells him his story, but Raymond is not convinced. He takes all of Will's time, telling him that they need to hold on to it while they continue their investigation, leaving him with only 2 hours. Understanding that he'll never get it back, he attacks the guards and grabs Sylvia hostage. They escape away from the city. However, on the way, they run into a trap set by the gangsters. While unconscious, they rob Sylvia's time. Sylvia panics when she wakes up, having never been down to so little time in her life. Will tells her not to panic and transfer her some of his own time. They run to Borrell's house with just 3 minutes left. To his horror, Borrell had drunk himself to death, with 9 years unused on his wrists. Thinking fast, Will spots Sylvia's earrings, and they sprint to a nearby pawn shop. The shopkeeper sees how little time they have left, and offers them a mere 48 hours for the diamond. He dials Philip and demands 1,000 years ransom for Sylvia's return, to be donated to the Timelines, which is a local charity that hands out time for those in need. Sylvia is shocked to hear that Will doesn't want any of the time for himself. Raymond warns him not to follow in his father's path before hanging up. At his apartment, he tells Sylvia that his father was a skilled arm fighter. Arm fighting is when 2 people attempt to transfer time from the other person at the same time. His father's trick was to let the opponents have the upper hand to begin with. They become overconfident as you're down to your last few seconds, but that's when you surprise them and make them lose their composure. He also describes from how the moment he turned 25, his entire year was gone in a matter of weeks to pay off their family's debts, and he's been living day to day ever since. The next day the store opens, but everyone was turned away as there was no donations. Will says to Sylvia it was likely because her father was prevented by the timekeepers, but Sylvia saw it as proof that her father didn't care about her. Nevertheless, Will lets her go and tells her to make a call to her family to collect her. Sylvia tells him that she'll do everything in her power to get him the 1,000 years back. He also gives her a gun to protect herself, and she kisses him. Sylvia makes the call, scolding her dad as 1,000 years means nothing to them. Her dad tells her it was because their previous call was tracked, and they're able to save her without the need to negotiate. Suddenly, Raymond appears from a corner and points his gun at Will. A panicked Sylvia shoots Raymond. Will approaches. Raymond laughs and says that timekeepers keep very little to avoid being targets. "Why would you give him time and not take it?" cries Sylvia, with Will replying that he would have died in the ghettos. They see a limo pass by and decide to rob the rich passenger, taking most of their time in diamond earrings. Later that night, they see that they're now wanted each with a reward of 10 years. Philip is talking with his business partners and assures that no ransom has been paid, as one explains that too much time in the wrong hands can crash the market. Raymond walks into the room and Philip attempts to bribe him, but he says that a warrant has been placed on her daughter, and if any assistance is offered to her, he'll have to place a warrant on him too. Will trains Sylvia how to shoot as they plan their next move. They're seen driving an armored car through a bank window before storming the vault, as they invite onlookers to grab what they can. Over the next week, the timekeepers' headquarters are in chaos, as there is a large flow of time into the poorer districts. One night, however, as the couple is resting, Fortis finds his way into the hiding place and holds them both at gunpoint. He reveals to them that although what the gangsters do is illegal, timekeepers allow them to operate, as they keep the poor in check, making sure that enough of them are dying, and once again offers him a chance to fight. As the two men lock arms, Will's time runs down fast, but just as he's about to reach 0, he strongly pulls it his way, causing Fortis to lose his cool. As he starts winning, he pulls the gun from one of the guards and shoots both, before zeroing Fortis. The next day, Sylvia returns home, pretending to turn herself in, only for it to be a trap, so Will can sneak up on him. Under gunpoint, they take Philip to his office, and open a large vault where they find a single cassette with 1,000,000 years. Philip pleads to Sylvia that if they give this to everyone, it will cripple the system and they won't be able to live luxurious lives anymore. Sylvia snaps back at him and says that no one is meant to live forever, especially not at the cost of so many lives. Now this is the part where the movie stops making sense, so I'm gonna shorten it a lot. Will and Sylvia runs away to the ghetto while Raymond chases them. Will hands the million credits to the little homeless girl and tells her to distribute the 1 million years. They run into the countryside on foot for some reason, so Ray simply drives up to them and goes like, please stop. However, because he's kinda dumb, he forgot to keep track of his own time and just dies. Justin Timberlake is suddenly like, oh shit, I only have a minute left because I'm also kind of dumb, and the girl as well. They see Raymond's car suddenly, oh I bet there's time in there. But we have to run. Will grabs a bunch of time, and they reenact the scene from before but she doesn't die. The world economy crashes somehow from this. Will and Sylvia spend the rest of their lives robbing banks because they find it fun. The end.